My mom texted, "You're no longer part of this family." I replied, "Then return the $42,000 I sent you." My inbox exploded. I showed up at the will reading with all the receipts. You know how sometimes one single text message can utterly shatter your entire world? Well, picture this. 1 minute, I'm in a high-stakes meeting, feeling on top of the world. The next, a text from my own mother rips my entire life apart, accusing me of being toxic and kicking me out of the family, all while she and my sister were secretly plotting to steal my grandmother's entire inheritance right under my nose. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and my phone just wouldn't stop buzzing against the polished conference table. Seriously, like a mosquito determined to annoy me. I was deep in a meeting with Marcus Donovan, my biggest client this quarter, going over some crucial blueprints. He was pointing out sightlines from the master bedroom, totally engrossed, and I was trying to focus, but that buzz, it was relentless. "I'm so sorry," I remember saying, forcing a professional smile. "Let me just silence this." I flipped my phone over, and that's when I saw it. A text from my mom, Genevieve, as she prefers everyone but me to call her. "Don't call or come over anymore. You are no longer part of this family. We're done. The family has decided." My hand started to tremble. And then a splash. Coffee sloshed over the rim of my mug, spreading a dark, ugly stain right across the southwest corner of those pristine blueprints. My career-defining project. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked, real concern flickering in his eyes. "Fine," I managed, dabbing at the spill with a napkin. "Just a minor family thing." A minor family thing? As if being excommunicated via text at 4:15 p.m. on a Tuesday was just a little hiccup. It felt like a punch to the gut. My mind immediately flashed back to that morning. I'd pulled an all-nighter for those renderings, and first thing, I'd transferred $2,500 to Mom's account. Money I really couldn't spare, for what she'd called an emergency AC repair. Get this, it was the third emergency this month. I was so exhausted I barely even registered the dangerously low balance notification that popped up afterwards. "Let's reschedule," Marcus said, gathering his things. "You seem distracted." "No, please," I started, but he was already standing. "It's fine, Sabrina. Family comes first, right?" He smiled, and I swear, those words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. He had no idea. "We'll pick this up on Friday." 30 minutes later, I found myself driving past Mom's house. My knuckles were white, gripping the steering wheel so tight. Several cars lined the driveway. Aunt Darlene's silver Lexus, Uncle Roderick's ridiculously flashy red convertible. The house glowed with warm light, and through the front window, I could see silhouettes moving, glasses raised. Music drifted through my cracked car window. Laughter. Celebration. Celebration of what? My banishment? I pulled up Instagram, a cold dread pooling in my stomach. My sister Saraphina's latest post popped up, a selfie with Mom, Aunt Darlene, and Uncle Roderick, all grinning widely. The caption read, "So blessed to be with my real family. Cutting out toxicity." Posted 20 minutes ago. My fingers trembled as I called her. She answered on the fourth ring. "What do you want?" Saraphina's voice was ice cold, nothing like the bubbly persona she puts on for her influencer videos. "What's going on?" I choked out. "Mom just texted me saying I'm not part of the family anymore." "She told you already?" "Good." A pause. "You're too toxic, Sabrina. Please respect our boundaries." "Boundaries? What are you talking about?" "I just sent Mom money this morning for—" "Don't make this about money," she snapped. "It's about your behavior." "What behavior?" I felt desperate. "If you don't know, that's part of the problem." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I have to go. Don't call again." The line went dead. The first drops of rain hit my windshield as I sat there, staring at my phone. Disbelief slowly crystallized into something harder, colder. Realization. I'd always been the responsible one. The family fixer. The one who dropped out of graduate school when Dad left, just to help Mom get back on her feet. The one who sent money whenever there was an emergency, which mysteriously always coincided with Saraphina's weekend getaways or Mom's spontaneous kitchen remodels. My banking app confirmed it. My account balance was dangerously low after that morning's transfer. Another notification popped up, an overdraft warning. The mortgage payment was scheduled for tomorrow. I'm the toxic one? After everything I've done? The rain fell harder now, matching the storm building inside me. I drove home to my empty apartment, the space I could barely afford because every extra dollar went to them. I opened my financial records app and created a new spreadsheet. Every transfer, every emergency, every loan that was never repaid. I documented it all, watching the numbers climb, $42,000 over the past 18 months. Beside the spreadsheet, I opened Saraphina's Instagram feed and began cross-referencing dates. The day after I sent money for Mom's plumbing emergency, Saraphina at a spa weekend. The car repair funds? A new designer bag appeared in her posts. The medical bills? A family vacation I wasn't invited to. I paid for my own exile, I whispered to my empty living room. Something shifted inside me, like a key turning in a rusty lock. I picked up my phone, toggled the settings, and set it to Do Not Disturb. No more. The next morning, an old tablet felt heavier than it should as I pulled it from the back of my closet. I blew dust from its surface, wondering if it even worked anymore. 3 years old, ancient by tech standards, abandoned when I upgraded. I plugged it in and waited. A miracle. It powered on. I swiped through apps I'd forgotten existed when a notification banner slid down from the top of the screen. Facebook. A platform I'd barely touched since Instagram became Saraphina's domain. Genevieve Parker has posted for the first time in 8 weeks. My mother's account. Still logged in. Of course it was. The woman who needed my help to set up email passwords and recover forgotten accounts never quite grasped the concept of logging out. Technology is for young people, she always said, while happily accepting the latest iPhone I'd buy her for Christmas. My finger hovered over the notification. This is an invasion of privacy. This crosses a line. Then I remembered her text. You are no longer part of this family. We're done. Lines had already been crossed. I tapped the notification. Mom's Facebook feed filled the screen. Nothing particularly revealing, just the usual, carefully curated photos of family dinners I'd funded but wasn't invited to. I navigated to her private messages, justifying each tap with memories of betrayal. The conversation with Saraphina sat at the top. Mom, did you talk to Sabrina about the lake house situation? Saraphina, no need. Once we phase her out completely, she'll never know about Grandma's will anyway. Mom, good. Kalen says he can handle the paperwork if Director Stevens cooperates. We just need to make sure Sabrina stays focused on her little building projects instead of asking about Estelle. Saraphina, she's so wrapped up in work she barely visits anymore. Told you those emergencies would keep her too busy to check on Grandma. Mom, perfect. Just make sure you're posting those care photos when you go. Need to maintain. Appearances. Saraphina, already scheduled for Thursday. Blessed granddaughter. My stomach churned. Phasing me out. Handling paperwork. The texts span months, each message more calculating than the last. They weren't just taking my money, they were deliberately keeping me from my grandmother. I scrolled further, searching for context, when a name stopped me cold. Mom, Director Stevens says we need to handle the Estelle situation by end of month. Her mind is getting worse, but she still asks for Sabrina. It's becoming a problem. Saraphina, can't we just tell her Sabrina moved away? Mom, we tried that. She gets upset. Wants to call her. Better to limit visits altogether. Saraphina, Kalen says if we get everything signed before she gets worse, nobody can question it later. A notification from another conversation appeared at the top of the screen. A distant cousin, one I hadn't spoken to in years. RP and Estelle. She will be missed. Sending prayers to your family during this difficult time. The tablet slipped from my fingers, bouncing on the carpet. Estelle is dead? My grandmother is gone? And nobody told me? I grabbed my phone with trembling hands, hitting my mother's number before thinking. She answered on the second ring. Sabrina? I thought I made myself clear yesterday. When did Grandma Estelle die? My voice didn't sound like my own. A pause. Too long. Oh. Her voice shifted to a practiced tone of surprise. I forgot to tell you. It happened last week. The funeral is tomorrow. Family only. You understand. Family only, I repeated, the words tasting like metal. Yes, dear. Given our current situation, it would be uncomfortable for everyone if I ended the call, staring at the blank screen. Estelle, the woman who taught me to draw, who saved my childhood sketches when Mom threw them out as clutter, who believed in my architectural dreams when everyone else called them impractical, was gone. And they kept it from me. The shock began to crystallize into something harder, colder. The grief remained, but now it shared space with a burning fury. I returned to the tablet, methodical now. There was a reference to a lawyer, Arthur Harding, in the messages. A quick search revealed his office downtown, professional, specialized in estate law. I made the call. Harding and Associates. Hello. I need to schedule an appointment with Mr. Harding regarding my grandmother's estate. Her name was Estelle Dubois. And your name? Sabrina Parker. I'm her granddaughter. One moment. Keyboard clicks. Mr. Harding has an opening tomorrow at 3. Perfect. I spent the next hours documenting everything. Screenshots of messages, bank transfers, timelines, creating a map of betrayal that spanned years, not just months. The pattern became clear. Systematic isolation, financial drain, and now, apparently, something to do with Grandma Estelle's will. My phone buzzed with a text from Saraphina. Hey sis. Hate to bother you with everything going on, but could you possibly spot me for new camera equipment? Just a tiny loan. $1,200 should cover it. For my business. For the first time in our adult relationship, I typed a single word, no. Her response was immediate. Wow. Grandma just died and you can't even help your sister? That tells me everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I continued organizing evidence, preparing for tomorrow's meeting. Whatever handling the Estelle situation meant, I intended to find out. The next afternoon, I sat in a wood-paneled office across from Arthur Harding. He was older than I expected, late 60s, with reading glasses perched at the end of his nose as he reviewed the file before him. Miss Parker, he began, professional distance in his tone. Your mother has already filed your grandmother's most recent will. Everything seems to be in order. I believe that will is a forgery. His eyes flickered up, measuring me. That's a serious accusation. I have evidence suggesting my mother and sister deliberately kept me from visiting my grandmother in her final months. There are messages discussing handling the Estelle situation and references to having documents signed. He removed his glasses slowly. I've known your grandmother for many years, Miss Parker. The will I have is dated 3 months ago. And the previous will? A moment of hesitation. Then he reached for a drawer, extracted another file. For years ago. Significantly different provisions. May I see it? He passed the document across the desk. The first line of the beneficiary section stole my breath. To my granddaughter, Sabrina Parker, I leave all property, financial assets, and personal effects. Mr. Harding's voice cut through my thoughts. You need to find proof of fraud, Miss Parker. Serious proof. Challenging a will is difficult under the best circumstances. I met his eyes. I understand. For the first time since receiving that text, I felt something like hope, not warm, but sharp and clarifying. Whatever they've done, whatever they're planning, I will find it. And then we'll see who's really done with this family. The next morning, the nursing home receptionist's smile faltered when I introduced myself. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by something that looked suspiciously like pity. I'm here to collect my grandmother's personal items, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. Estelle Dubois' belongings. She reached for the phone. Let me call Director Stevens. While waiting, I scanned the visiting area. A framed photo of Mom and Saraphina from last Christmas sat prominently on the welcome desk. Grandma Estelle wasn't in it. Neither was I. Director Stevens appeared within minutes, a security guard hovering in his wake. His face arranged itself into professional concern, but his eyes were cold. Miss Parker, I understand your desire to collect your grandmother's items. He clasped his hands in front of him. However, only the executrix, Miss Genevieve Parker, has authorization to remove personal effects. I'm her granddaughter. Yes, well, he cleared his throat. We have specific instructions. The security guard shifted his weight, hand resting on his radio. Instructions. I repeated. From your mother, the legal executrix. Director Stevens gestured toward the exit. Perhaps you should speak with her directly. As I stood there, 2 nurses walked past, whispering. I caught fragments. The granddaughter they warned us about. And trying to steal heirlooms. My phone vibrated. Saraphina's latest Instagram post appeared on my screen. A black and white photo of her holding Grandma Estelle's reading glasses, captioned, "Some toxic family members will try to profit from grief rather than process it. Protecting Grandma's legacy. Family first." Posted 3 minutes ago. Fine. I turned to leave, hands trembling with rage rather than weakness. I'll be in touch through my lawyer. The parking lot stretched before me. Empty, except for my car and the afternoon sun glinting off windshields. I was halfway across the asphalt when I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Miss Parker. Wait. A nurse in blue scrubs jogged toward me, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Her badge read, "Brenda kneeling, RN, I shouldn't be doing this," she said, voice barely above a whisper. But I cared for Estelle. I loved her. The simple past tense, loved, not love, hit me like a physical blow. Grandma is really gone. What do you want? I asked, wary of another trap. Brenda looked around again, then stepped closer. What they did. It's criminal. She only ever asked for you. Never them. Only you. Something shifted inside me, the first validation I'd felt in days. Someone else sees it. I'm not crazy. I'm not toxic. They visited when she was signing papers, Brenda continued. They wouldn't let me in the room. Against protocol. What kind of papers? I don't know exactly, but afterward, Director Stevens was so pleased. Said the facility would be receiving a substantial donation. We exchanged phone numbers, Brenda promising to contact me if she found anything concrete. Be careful, she warned. They're watching for you now. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, reviewing everything I'd learned. Saraphina's family first posts. Mom's sudden wealth. Director Stevens blocking access. It all pointed to the will, but I needed proof. My phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. A text from Brenda. Check your email. Security camera in hall outside her room. I'm on night shift. Delete this. The video file loaded slowly. Black and white footage showed Grandma's room, door ajar. The timestamp read 10 days ago, 2 days before she died. Inside the room, visible through the gap, Kaylin, Saraphina's boyfriend, bent over a document, carefully tracing what appeared to be a signature. Director Stevens stood beside him, notary stamp in hand. And there, in the background, Mom and Saraphina watched, champagne glasses in hand. I replayed it 3 times, each viewing stoking my anger. The 4th time, I noticed something in the corner. Grandma's bed, empty. Where was she when they forged her signature? Another text from Brenda arrived. She was in radiology for tests. They knew her schedule. Got you, I whispered to my empty apartment. The next morning, I searched Mom's Facebook messages again. A name appeared repeatedly in exchanges about Grandma, Beatrice. She seemed to be someone Mom actively avoids, perfect for my purposes. Google yielded a Beatrice Croft in Portland, Oregon. 63 years old. Born Beatrice Parker. Grandma's maiden name was Parker. This could be Mom's sister. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, doubt creeping in. What if she's just another enabler? What if this makes things worse? The image of Kaylin forging Grandma's signature stole my resolve. I dialed the number. Hello. A woman's voice, strong but wary. Aunt Beatrice? You don't know me. I'm Sabrina, Genevieve's daughter. My voice caught. I think my mother is stealing Grandma Estelle's estate. A long silence followed, then a weary sigh that contained decades of history. I'm not surprised, child. Genevieve did the same thing to our parents 30 years ago. The validation hit me like a wave. You believe me? Of course I do. She cut me out completely when our father died, claimed I was unstable, that I'd mismanaged money. Sound familiar? It did, exactly what they're saying about me now. Tell me what you need, Beatrice said, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had family. 2 days later, I met with Dr. Eris Thorne, a handwriting expert Beatrice recommended. He compared samples of Grandma's signature from her birthday cards to me with the photographed will signature Mr. Harding had reluctantly provided. Dr. Thorne barely needed 10 minutes. "This is unquestionably a forgery," he declared, "and not even a particularly good one. The pressure points are inconsistent, the letter formations distinctly different." He looked up from his magnifying glass. Whoever did this was rushing. With Dr. Thorne's written analysis and the security footage, I contacted Detective Miller from the Economic Crimes Division. She reviewed everything carefully, asking precise questions about timelines and relationships. "We'll need to move strategically," she advised. "These kinds of cases hinge on timing. We don't want them disposing of assets before we can act." I left with a plan in place, a court date for the evidence presentation, and something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. That evening, an official notice arrived at my apartment. The reading of Grandma's will, scheduled for Friday at Mr. Harding's office. Perfect timing. My phone lit up with a text from Mr. Harding. "They don't know what's coming." As I packed the evidence folder, video file, expert analysis, witness statements, my phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen. After weeks of silence, now she wanted to talk? I answered, curiosity winning over caution. "Sabrina, darling." Her voice was honey-sweet, the way it gets when she wants something. I let the silence stretch, remembering all the times I rushed to apologize first, to fix things I hadn't broken. "I'll see you at the reading, Mother," I said finally, my voice calm and clear. I ended the call before she could respond, a small victory that felt bigger than it should. On the will reading day, I arrived at Mr. Harding's office precisely at 3 p.m., neither a minute early nor a second late. The calculated punctuality was deliberate. I refused to give them the satisfaction of appearing either eager or reluctant. The heavy oak door closed behind me with a soft click. 7 heads swiveled in unison, eyes widening as they registered my presence. My mother's face transitioned from composed to alarmed in the span of a heartbeat. "What is she doing here?" Genevieve whispered to Saraphina, her voice carrying in the silence of the wood-paneled room. My sister rolled her eyes dramatically, making sure everyone noticed her performative disdain. She tilted her head toward Aunt Darlene, playing to her audience as always. I took the only remaining seat, directly across from my mother, and met her gaze without blinking. Her eyes started away first. Genevieve looked expensive today. Her cream-colored suit appeared freshly purchased, the price tags probably still in her car. Diamond studs caught the light when she turned her head, studs I recognized from a medical emergency 3 months ago. $2,000 well spent, apparently. Saraphina held her phone at what she considered a discreet angle, documenting what she'd later caption as a solemn family moment. Her thumb moved rapidly, probably adding filters before the reading even began. Kalen shifted uncomfortably in his seat beside her, eyes flicking nervously toward Director Stevens, who sat ramrod straight near the window. Their confidence seemed practiced rather than natural, the posture of people who believed they'd already won. Aunt Darlene and Uncle Roderick flanked my mother like bookends, their expressions a matched set of smug anticipation. The family had arranged themselves physically as they had emotionally, a unified front, with me clearly positioned as the outsider. Mr. Harding cleared his throat. "If everyone is present, we'll begin the reading of Estelle Dubois' last will and testament." He adjusted his glasses and began reading from the document in front of him, his professional detachment masking whatever personal opinions he might hold about its contents. "I, Estelle Marie Dubois, being of sound mind," he began, his voice steady and measured. As he read through the standard legal preamble, I watched my mother's face. A slight smile played at the corners of her mouth, growing more pronounced each time the phrase, "to my daughter Genevieve Parker" or "to my granddaughter Saraphina Parker" appeared. "My collection of first edition American classics to my granddaughter Saraphina," Mr. Harding read. Books Saraphina had never opened, never appreciated. Books I spent hours discussing with Grandma Estelle, helping her turn the fragile pages. My lake house property and all associated furnishings to my daughter Genevieve. the home where I spent every summer helping Grandma plant her beloved hydrangeas. The remainder of my financial assets, including stocks, bonds, and bank accounts, to be divided between my daughter Genevieve and my granddaughter Saraphina in equal shares. Not a single mention of my name, as if I never existed, as if I hadn't been the only one visiting her regularly for the past 5 years. I remained silent, gathering the weight of everyone's attention as Mr. Harding continued through the final provisions. When he finally looked up and asked if there were any questions, the room had settled into a satisfied silence, the quiet of vultures after a feast. "May I say something?" I asked, my voice quiet but clear. The room tensed, Seraphina's thumb froze mid-text, Genevieve's smile faltered. "Of course," Mr. Harding said, gesturing for me to proceed. I stood, placing my evidence folder on the table. The sound of the leather portfolio hitting the polished wood seemed unnaturally loud. "I'd like to introduce Dr. Eris Thorne," I said, nodding toward the door. On cue, it opened to admit a distinguished man in his 60s carrying a slim laptop. "What is this?" Genevieve demanded, straightening in her chair. "Dr. Thorne is a forensic handwriting expert," I continued, ignoring her. "He has examined the signature on this document." Mr. Harding raised an eyebrow, but said nothing as Dr. Thorne connected his computer to the room's projection system. The wall behind my mother's head illuminated with a magnified image of Grandma Estelle's purported signature alongside several known authentic examples. "As you can see," Dr. Thorne began, using a laser pointer to highlight specific features. "The pressure points, connecting strokes, and letter formations are inconsistent with Ms. Dubois's established writing patterns." Director Stevens shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his professional facade beginning to crack. He nearly knocked over his water glass when the door opened again and Nurse Brenda entered quietly, taking a position near the wall. "Nurse Brenda Kneeling cared for my grandmother during her final months," I explained. "She has provided a sworn statement regarding visitors to my grandmother's room on the day this will was supposedly signed." Genevieve stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Arthur, you can't allow this. This ambush. She's trying to ruin us out of jealousy." Saraphina cried, tears appearing on command. "Mom, make them stop this." I saw Kalen already moving toward the door, but 2 uniformed officers blocked his exit. His face drained of color as Detective Miller began reciting Miranda rights, the familiar words echoing in the suddenly silent room. "Genevieve Parker, Saraphina Parker, Kalen Stone, and James Stevens, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to defraud an estate." The click of handcuffs echoed in the room, first around Kalen's wrists, then Director Stevens, then Seraphina's. When the officer reached for Genevieve, she flinched as if his touch might burn her. "You can't do this," she whispered, no longer looking at the officer, but directly at me. "I'm your mother." The stunned silence that followed felt like a physical presence in the room. Aunt Darlene and Uncle Roderick had moved to the far corner, their expressions transforming from smugness to horror to calculated distance. "We had no idea," Uncle Roderick announced to no one in particular. "If we'd known anything about this, we certainly would have spoken up immediately." Mr. Harding waited until the officers had escorted the 4 handcuffed figures toward the door before opening his desk drawer. He removed another document, this one in a blue folder. "I believe this is now the valid document," he said, placing Grandma Estelle's original will on the table, the one that Miss Estelle Dubois signed in my presence 4 years ago, leaving the majority of her estate to her granddaughter, Sabrina Parker. I didn't feel the triumph I expected, just a hollow ache where family should be. As the room cleared, Detective Miller paused beside me. "Good work," he said quietly, "but this isn't over yet. They'll be out on bail soon." I nodded, gathering my evidence folder. The battle was won, but the war had just begun. A week later, a GoFundMe notification flashed on my phone screen, fighting my greedy, abusive daughter. My mother's face stared back at me, carefully posed with a tissue dabbed to the corner of her eye. The fundraiser had already collected $3,200. I scrolled through the description, my jaw tightening with each fabricated detail. According to Genevieve, I'd manipulated my poor, vulnerable grandmother, and falsified evidence to frame my innocent mother and sister. The comments section overflowed with sympathy and outrage on her behalf. "Your mother raised you alone after your father abandoned you both," wrote someone named Linda. "How could you do this to her? They don't know that dad left because mom emptied their joint accounts. They don't know anything." My work phone rings. It's my colleague Richard. "Sabrina, I just saw the most disturbing thing on TikTok. Your sister." I know, I cut him off, rubbing my temples. They're out on bail and running a smear campaign. It's gone viral. She's promising her followers a live confrontation at some family retreat this weekend. I pulled up Saraphina's TikTok profile. There she was, tears streaming perfectly down her face, makeup artfully smudged just enough to look authentic without being messy. "Next weekend, I'll face my abuser at our annual Parker family retreat," she told her 70,000 followers, voice quavering. "I'll show you all the truth, no matter how scared I am." My phone buzzed with a text from a second cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. "How could you do this to your mother? After everything she's done for you?" It's the third such message today, the 10th this week. Another notification. An email from Genevieve to the entire extended family about the Parker family retreat at the lake house. My lake house now, legally Estelle's property that passed to me through her actual, legitimate will. I closed my laptop, overwhelmed by the digital onslaught. The weight of this public character assassination pressed down on me. For a moment, I considered hiding, disappearing until the trial. Let the courts handle it, let the evidence speak for itself. My phone rang again. It's Aunt Beatrice. "They're really going for the court of public opinion, aren't they?" she says when I answer, skipping any greeting. It's working, I admit, my voice smaller than I intend. People are believing them. People believe what's convenient and simple. The truth is rarely either. Aunt Beatrice's voice hardened. "What's your plan?" "I don't know if I have one. Maybe just wait for the trial. By then, your reputation will be in tatters." Genevieve knows exactly what she's doing. Aunt Beatrice pauses. "Let them have their retreat." "What? You want me to host them at the lake house?" "Not host. Be ready." There's a steely confidence in her voice that steadies me. "We'll set the stage, Sabrina. Just like they are." 2 days later, we walked through the lake house, Aunt Beatrice pointing out optimal spots for discreet recording equipment. The place felt different now, no longer the warm refuge of childhood memories with Grandma Estelle, but a battleground for the final confrontation. "I found something," Beatrice said that evening, carefully placing an old digital recorder on the kitchen table. "Estelle gave this to me for safekeeping months ago. I think she suspected something might happen." I pressed play. Grandma's voice, friendlier than I remembered but still clear, filled the room. "I'm changing my will today. Sabrina is the only one who comes without wanting something. That's why she gets everything. Genevieve hasn't visited me once without asking for money. And that granddaughter Saraphina only comes to take pictures for her internet followers." Tears pricked at my eyes. I hadn't known Grandma was so aware, even with her Alzheimer's. "We'll need more," I said, wiping my eyes. "Videos of me with Estelle. The forgery footage in higher resolution. Everything. And we'll need to be strategic about when we show it," Aunt Beatrice added. "Timing is everything." Saturday arrived with a convoy of cars pulling into the lake house driveway. I watched from the upstairs window as my relatives emerged, carrying covered dishes and overnight bags. They expected a gathering. They'd get a reckoning. Genevieve spotted me watching and froze momentarily before recovering with a tight smile and a wave, the performance already beginning. When the last guest arrived, I descended the stairs. The living room fell silent as I entered. "Welcome to the annual Parker family retreat," I said quietly. "I'm glad you could all make it." Genevieve recovered first, stepping forward with a microphone in hand. She must have brought her own sound system. "Since we're all here," she announced to the room, "I think it's time we address the elephant in the room." She turned to me, voice rising dramatically. "Sabrina is doing this because she abused Saraphina for years. She's always been jealous of her sister's success." Saraphina stepped forward, phone held at the perfect angle for her live stream, tears already flowing. "I've been afraid to speak out," she said tremulously to her audience, but I can't stay silent anymore. I noticed several family members shifting uncomfortably, looking between us, uncertain who to believe. Without a word, I walked to the audio-visual setup Aunt Beatrice, and I prepared yesterday. I connected my laptop as Saraphina continued her performance, her follower count ticking upward with each crocodile tear. I think I said, interrupting her flow, we should see the truth. The projector illuminated the wall behind me. The first video played, me feeding Grandma Estelle, helping her with physical therapy exercises, reading to her while she smiled peacefully. No posed selfies, no performative affection, just genuine care. Whispers rippled through the gathered family. The second video began, the forgery footage, now in crystal clear resolution. Kaylin bent over Estelle's will, practicing her signature before applying it to the document. Director Stevens applying his notary stamp. Genevieve and Saraphina watching approvingly in the background. Saraphina's live stream continued, but her performance faltered as her phone screen filled with comments. Wait, is this for real? Are we watching a crime happening? Oh my God, she lied to us. Finally, I played Estelle's audio recording. As my grandmother's voice filled the room, explaining why she left everything to me, Aunt Beatrice stepped forward. Genevieve did the same thing to our parents, she announced, her voice steady. This is a pattern. I was too young to stop it then, but I'm here now. Family members began backing away from Genevieve and Saraphina, the united front crumbling with each new revelation. Saraphina lunged for the projector. She's manipulating the videos. This is all fake. The front door opened. Detective Miller stepped in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Bail violation, he says simply, and we'll be adding defamation charges. As they're led away, Saraphina's phone still live streaming the entire arrest. I caught a glimpse of her follower count dropping in real time. Her carefully constructed influencer persona crumbled before thousands of witnesses. The truth will always surface eventually, I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else. The family retreat continued, but it was a different gathering now. One by one, relatives approached with awkward apologies and stunned realizations. I accepted them with quiet dignity, knowing that while some relationships might be salvaged, nothing will ever be the same, and perhaps that's exactly as it should be. The doorbell rings, an unwelcome intrusion on my first peaceful morning in weeks. Through the peephole, I see Aunt Darlene and Uncle Roderick standing on my porch, their expressions set in what I recognize as their family intervention faces. I consider not answering, but something inside me, that knew, steely something that formed the day I received my mother's text, wants this conversation. Sabrina? Dear. Aunt Darlene says when I open the door, her voice honeyed with false concern. We need to talk. I step aside without a word, letting them enter. Uncle Roderick's cologne fills my living room, the same overpowering scent he wore at the lake house when they all raised their glasses and called me toxic. This has gone too far, he says, refusing my gesture to sit. The sentencing was yesterday. 7 years for your mother, Sabrina. 7 years. For Seraphina, Aunt Darlene adds, clutching her designer purse like a shield. And that poor boy Kaylin got 8. You must drop the charges. Family is family. A strange calm washes over me. You were there, weren't you? I ask, my voice steady. At the family dinner, the night Mom sent that text. They exchange glances. I don't see what that has to, Uncle Roderick begins. You were eating the food and drinking the wine I paid for. I step closer. The wine I bought with the money Mom said was for a broken AC unit, while you all called me toxic. Aunt Darlene's face flushes. Sabrina, you're not being fair. We didn't know. You knew. The words come out softly, but they land with weight. You've always known. You're not family. You're her audience. Uncle Roderick draws himself up, indignation replacing his conciliatory tone. Now listen here, I walk to the door and pull it open wide. Get out of my house. This isn't over, Aunt Darlene says, but her voice wavers. It is for me. The legal proceedings moved with unexpected swiftness after that. Director Stevens took a plea deal, providing testimony that sealed the others' fates. The GoFundMe campaign Saraphina had created, Help Us Fight Family Betrayal, was shut down, all donations refunded through what became the Estelle Foundation's first official act. The foundation's second was to launch a nursing home reform initiative in my grandmother's memory. 3 weeks after the sentencing, I received a thick envelope from the Women's Correctional Facility. 10 pages of my mother's elegant handwriting, full of explanations, justifications, and carefully constructed apologies that never quite took responsibility. She reminded me of our beautiful family bond. She pointed out how Saraphina was suffering without her social media access. She suggested that perhaps we both made mistakes. I spent hours with that letter, reading and rereading, feeling the words try to wind around me like familiar chains. I wrote dozens of replies in my head, arguments and counterarguments, defenses and accusations. In the end, I took a single sheet of paper and wrote one sentence. You were right the first time. We're done. After a moment's thought, I added a PS, your commissary account will not be funded by me. Try manifesting abundance as Saraphina taught you. I sealed the envelope without regret. The healing comes in quiet moments after that, standing at Estelle's grave with fresh daffodils, her favorites. Restoring her garden at the lake house, my hands in the dirt she once tended. Weekly calls with Aunt Beatrice, building a relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation. My architecture firm promotes me after I bring in 2 major clients. Without the constant drain of family emergencies, my finances stabilize, then flourish. When December arrives, I host a small gathering at the lake house. My colleague Marcus and his wife, 2 friends from my running group, Aunt Beatrice, who flies in from Oregon. We eat and laugh around a table where no one keeps score, where no one takes without giving back. Tonight, I sit on the lake house deck, watching the sun sink behind the trees. My phone buzzes with a notification. The Estelle Foundation has awarded its first nursing home staff scholarship to a young nurse named Lily Keller. I glance at my social media feed one last time. Saraphina's influencer account stands frozen in time, her last post still gathering occasionally vitriolic comments from former followers who now know the truth. With a quiet smile, I silence my phone and turn my attention back to the sunset, painting the lake in shades of gold and pink. The family we choose, I think, is the family that matters.